Hello, everyone. It's about 1:58, and we will be getting started in just a couple of minutes. I did want to point out that everyone's welcome to use the chat feature and let me know if you have any trouble with sound or if you have any questions. Okay, I just learned that there is not some of y'all may not be seeing a chat pane. I think that's the same as the question. On the right-hand side, where you have all the controls, I believe you can type a message in there. It's underneath, it says chat. So if you click on that, it should expand. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get started. And again, if folks need having trouble with audio, please let me know. This is a new webinar platform that we're using today, and still working out some of the kinks for it. Well, my name is Paige Tidwell Kaysen, and I am with the Institute on Human Development and Disability at University of Georgia. And we are a USED here in Georgia, one of two. And through funding provided by the Georgia Council on Developmental Disabilities, we have implemented a Technical Assistance Center for Best Practices in Employment Supports. And we have been for the last 2 years providing individualized technical assistance to providers to support them as they transform from being a facility-based program to a community-based employment program. And we also utilize our Advanced Employment website to serve as a virtual learning community for both individuals with disabilities, family members, and stakeholders, as well as a virtual community of practice for employment providers. So we hope that if you have not already signed up for our community of practice, that you do so, because we will have a lot of good information following these webinars linked up there, including we will be archiving all of our webinars that are part of this series on our website on the community of practice link. So we want to welcome you to our first webinar of our webinar series this spring. And after today, we'll have one on Thursday. That's Leadership and Lessons Learned with Marion Curry. And on March 4th, we have Tracy Reckensberger, one of my coworkers, seeing and facilitating the employment potential of those typically labeled nonverbal. In April, we have Doug Crandall. He will talk about the economic approach to job development. And then in May, we'll have Beth Keaton, who is the Executive Director at Griffin Hammis and Associates, talk about an introduction to fidelity and discovery and customized job development. My role with Advanced Employment is I'm the project manager and I'm the technical assistance coordinator. And then Tracy, she handles a lot of our communications to our membership through in the community of practice. She does an e-newsletter, and she's also an expert in family, working with families, and also augmented devices and communication devices. And Doug, he is our project director, and he is a national expert in customized employment and basically competitive integrated employment for individuals with disabilities. All right, so there's the introduction. Today we're going to, I want to talk about determining and documenting informed choice for employment. And as my marketing paragraph indicated, it's something that we're all familiar with, informed choice, but as the saying goes, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And as we will talk about throughout the day, now is the time that we have to start implementing documentation, best practices, and understand what truly is informed choice and how it relates to competitive integrated employment and what it means to the individuals we're working with as to what informed choice is. And if I didn't, I think I failed to mention this before, that attached to the presentation today is a PDF of this PowerPoint. Also, after today, you should get a follow-up email that will have a question about your satisfaction with this presentation. Okay, so first let's talk about defining informed choice. All right, so this is something that's common sense, right? So when someone is informed, that means they have information. And then if they have a choice, it's the act or power of choosing. And when you add those two together, you have an informed decision. To help showcase this thought, and it's something that we, every day, we have our own selves informed decision. We make informed decisions, just like, voting. We learn about the candidates and we decide based on what's important to us, our preferences, and the information that we have, who we feel is the best candidate that we want to vote for. So here's a YouTube video that I hope will work when I click on it to illustrate the point of having informed choice.
Let's go.
All right. So as you can see, if that fella was informed of what was under the other two cups, he might have chosen differently. So I'm sure I would have, and I want to thank my lovely 20-year-old daughter who told me about that video for today's presentation. Okay, so for individuals with disabilities, informed choice means, and these are terms that we've all heard, self-determination, individualized services, being person-centered, supported decision-making, autonomy. And while we are talking here, use the chat feature or the question box there. What other words come to mind when you think about informed choice as it relates to individuals with disabilities? The bottom line is that everyone has the right to be included, to make decisions about their lives, have meaningful choices from which to make those decisions, to achieve their full potential, and have the quality of life they envision. At times, it may not be a choice that we would want to make, but if providing them with all the information, then they can make the decisions that is best for them. I want to make decisions that are best for me, as I'm sure that you would like to make the decisions that are best for you. Anybody have any other words that come to mind as far as what informed choice means and what it relates to? I think about autonomy. That's for people who are in the counseling field and they have certifications or licensure. Autonomy is a part of an ethical code, and that individuals have the right to make those decisions. Professionals with those licensures or certifications are held to code of ethics that ensure that we give individuals their autonomy. Okay. So informed choice, what has been, it's a concept that we're very familiar with, as I just mentioned, it's in the code of ethics, but over the recent years, it is written in the codes, laws, and regulation that it's mandated that it is being provided, and it's particularly relevant to our field of helping people with disabilities obtain and maintain employment that's meaningful. So it's about civil rights, quality assurance, and quality outcomes. Starting back in 1992, the Rehab Act of 1973, as it was amended, first included a mandate within the laws about informed choice, which I'll go over in just a little bit. And it's still written in the Rehab Act today as it's amended. The Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bill of Rights Act of 2000, it addresses informed choice. The ADA and Olmstead, the integration mandate from 2011, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, and the Center for Medicaid Services, the Home and Community-Based Service Settings Rule. All these specifically refer to informed choice, which I'm going to go into just a little bit as we go forward. So thinking about the Rehab Act, and I've put some links, so if y'all have an interest in checking it out yourselves, you're welcome to. The Rehab Act of 1973, as amended, it started in 1988, but was actually written into law in 1992 after all the amendments. It specifically states, it wrote into law about the individualized work plan that the consumer writes with the vocational rehab staff member. And the provisions within the amendments revised the individualized written rehab plan to include, among other things, statements of long-range goals based on the assessment of the individual's rehab needs, the intermediate objectives that they have determined through a needs assessment that's carried out in the most individualized and integrated setting. This is consistent with the individualized informed choice. So here it is in 1992. This is where it's written for vocational rehab. And here, this is what's in currently the United States Code, which is based on the Rehab Act law. It's the policy in the United States that all programs, projects, and activities receiving assistance under this chapter, which is the VR program, shall be carried out in a manner consistent with the principles of, and the very first one is respect for individual dignity, personal responsibility, self-determination, and pursuit of meaningful careers based on informed choice of individuals with disabilities. So here it is. It's in law for vocational rehab, and it's codified. The DD Act of 2000 also makes a reference in their law about the goals of the nation properly include a goal of providing individuals with developmental disabilities with information, skills, opportunities, and support to, the very first one there is make informed choices and decisions about their life. It's also about living in the home and communities in which they can exercise their full rights and responsibilities, pursue meaningful and productive lives, contribute to families, communities, have interdependent friendships, live free of abuse, neglect, achieve full integration and inclusion in society in an individualized manner consistent with unique strengths, resources, priorities, and concerns. So here it is. This is in the law of the DD Act, which governs the DD services in each state. Okay, so here we are, fast forwarding to 2014, and we're talking about the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. So this was written into law in July of 2014, which reauthorized the Workforce Investment Act of 1998 and the Rehab Act. But it had some substantial changes to it, which I'm sure many of you are very familiar with. But what is the crucial changes that impact employment for individuals with significant disabilities is that WIOA defined competitive integrated employment, which includes customized employment as a competitive employment outcome. It increased the VR role in transition, as everyone knows, as well as included for the first time limitations on use of subminimum wage. And here's a graphic about competitive integrated employment. And again, I feel certain that many of you already are familiar with this. But when it comes to competitive integrated employment, these components all need to be there for it to be considered a successful employment outcome for individuals receiving VR services. So the pay rate has to be the same as co-workers without disabilities who perform the same type of job, who've had the same level of training. It can be full-time or part-time. Individuals with disabilities need to have access to the same benefits as co-workers without disabilities. It needs to be in the community, and they're paid by the employer. They're not paid by a facility or a third-party program. The duties performed are in an integrated setting, and that's where they have an opportunity to engage with coworkers without disabilities while they're performing work. They can work together as a team. Look around, your current place of employment, and we all get to have those water cooler conversations. We have different, our work culture, our workplace culture. Individuals with significant disabilities need to have the same opportunities to engage in those. Work is important. It meets our need for belonging. It meets many of our hierarchy needs, and everybody should have the opportunity to achieve that and to experience that. And within vocational rehab, a successful employment outcome will not take place if these conditions are not met. And finally, they need to have opportunities for advancement, the same as everybody else. They should not be regulated to working 10 hours a week. They should not be regulated to work only earning, $8 an hour, just barely above minimum wage. Everybody wants to feel valued for their contribution. Okay. I apologize for some of the words are not are kind of messed up here. But within the WIOA, the VR program regulations, informed choice is specifically identified for what has to be documented. So again, today's webinar is about not only determining what is informed choice, but it's also documenting it. So documentation describes the extent to which an applicant or eligible individual exercise their informed choice regarding the provision of assessment services, the extent to which eligible individuals exercise their informed choice. So again, we're talking about this has to be in the vocational rehab record. The Rehab Services Administration, who is the federal regulatory agency, they do case audits, and they will be looking for this. This is what they look for to ensure that this mandate is met. The individuals are exercising their informed informed choice related to specific vocational rehabilitation services needed to achieve the employment outcome, and the entity providing those services, the employment setting they want to work in, and the settings in which services are provided, and the methods to procure the services. Every individual who are applying for services or receiving VR services are mandated to be afforded this informed choice, this information, so they can make informed decisions. The information and assistance in the selection of VR rehab services include that VR must, the VR programs must provide the individual or their individual representative or help them obtain this information about the providers, as far as who they are, the types of services that are offered, the degree in which those services are provided in integrated settings, the cost and accessibility and duration of potential services, this consumer satisfaction with those services that are available, and the qualification of potential service providers, and the outcomes that these providers have obtained previously. And I can only imagine how little this is done. I was with vocational rehab here in Georgia for 11 years. Started off as a counselor, and then I was a unit manager, and then I was at the state office. And I don't think I went into this level of depth. I often encourage them to take tours of, or walk through tours of the programs I referred them to. I would explain to the best of my ability the difference between the providers. But in today's time, when everybody has too many people on their caseload, maybe this is not happening as much. We are seeing individual or professionals who haven't had a lot of training in the labor market. So without understanding what the labor market is, how are they providing accurate and relevant information that's the best for the individual? So in order for informed choice to be provided in this way that's mandated, vocational rehab professionals as well as their providers also need to be very knowledgeable about their services. They need to have things in place to collect customer satisfaction and have it available for the public. They need to keep always the individual in mind at forefront as to the information that's shared so that the person can make an informed decision. Okay, is everyone doing all right? I haven't seen any questions, so be sure to let me know if you have anything. Okay, among the VR program's mandated responsibilities, it is also written into law that the information and the counseling that the vocational rehab professional provides is understandable to the individual with a disability. It has to meet them where they are. Oftentimes, vocational rehab in all states, letters are sent out that are complicated or complex to read, one of which is required. It's called a notice of change, and it talks about their case being closed or changes to the person's work plan. And in there it says that they have the right to appeal. But oftentimes those letters are sent out without thinking about the person who it's being sent to, what their style of communication is. Is it written in the correct language in that they understand? Are they English speaking? Are they, if they have a visual impairment, is it something that can be used with their readers, screen readers, and those types of things? How are we considering the person that is receiving these letters? And do they understand it? So therefore, informed choice is about presenting the information that is understandable to the person. It doesn't do any good if they don't understand what you're trying to tell them. Also, VR, the counseling and information services, facilitate independent decision-making and informed choice as the individual makes decisions regarding opportunities for competitive integrated employment and career advancement, particularly with respect to support employment, including customized employment. So considering that this is written into law, this is what is required of the vocational rehab program, and it is mandated that this is documented in the consumer's files. How well is this being done? How does a vocational rehab counselor or professional document this in the person's record? You have conversations, and then you document what those conversations are and what the individual stated that their preferences were. You give them opportunities to check things out, and those opportunities are documented. The Workforce Investment Act, I keep calling, I apologize, the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. One of the most significant parts of this legislation is the limitations on subminimum wage, which is also referred to as Section 511. So the law requires that all workers with disabilities who are paid subminimum wage, regardless of their age, receive regular career counseling information about self-advocacy, self-determination, and peer mentoring training opportunities in the local area every 6 months during the first year of employment and annually thereafter. Now, most, at least here in Georgia, most of the individuals that are in subminimum wage programs or getting paid subminimum wage, they've been there for a long time. So outreach has to be done to give them that initial counseling. And then it has to be done every year thereafter. The career counseling and information provided by the VR program must document the individual's informed choice, as well as the interests, priorities, and needs of that person with respect to competitive integrated employment or training for competitive integrated employment. So keep in mind, the CIE is what we, call for short. It has to be, in the community. They're earning real wages. It's working alongside others who do not have disabilities. It is of their choice, and they have opportunities for advancement. All those things have to be conveyed to the people who are receiving subminimum wages and help them understand in terms that, or meet them where they are, as to why it's important for them to make those informed decisions, what it means to them versus being in a program that they are used to, that they might be making $2 an hour or $3 an hour. They're having fun, they're with their friends, and they may not understand why they need to make a decision or what the decision means to go work in the community. Involving those family members, helping them understand that working in the community should be an expectation. As of July of 2019, which is the most recent data available on Department of Labor's Wage and Hour website, in Georgia, there's currently 22 community rehab programs paying close to 1,000 individuals with disabilities sub-minimum wages. Now, here in Georgia, we've done well reducing the number of CRPs with these sub-minimum wage certificates, which is also referred to as 14C. Last year, I believe it was in the 30s. A couple years before that, there were 60s. And it was probably just about 5 years ago, we had over 100 community rehab programs who had an active subminimum wage certificate. So we're doing really well in reducing those programs, but are we doing well in getting those people out in the community, or are they sitting at home, or are they just doing things without getting any kind of pay? Are they volunteering? And is that really a good choice for them? Okay, Americans with Disabilities Act and the Olmstead Enforcement. So this is from the Department of Justice website, Olmstead website, in relation to the ADA's integration mandate, and this was in 2011. So a lot of, as you notice in the years, it's been quite some time since informed choice was written into law and what it would mean to employment programs. It seems to be taking us a while to get these things figured out. So ADA's integration mandate is that an integrated setting definition, that integrated settings are those that provide individuals with disabilities opportunities to live, work, and receive services in the greater community, like individuals without disabilities. Integrated settings offer access to community activities and opportunities at times, frequencies, and with persons of an individual's choosing. They are afforded a choice in their daily life activity. ADA also mandates that a public entity, which is a program, may violate ADA's integration mandate if their program directly or indirectly operates facilities and/or programs that segregate individuals with disabilities. If they finance the segregation of individuals with disabilities in private facilities, and/or through its planning, service system design, funding choices, or service implementation practices, promotes or relies on segregation of individuals with disabilities in private facilities or program. The one thing, the things that come to my mind that could potentially, violate the ADA integration mandate would be those programs that use enclaves. That's the Ability One or Source America. Although they might be working in areas where people without disabilities are working, they are not working alongside them. They are a group that's going on a site to do the work. They're not working with someone doing the same job that doesn't have a disability. It's not integrated. Also comes to mind are programs that were, again, the 14 C's. They're paying some minimum wage. It's not meeting the ADA integration mandate. So there's a lot of opportunities for facilities to be out of compliance in any of these laws that we're talking about, as well as with Olmstead enforcement and the ADA with Americans with Disabilities Act. So it's important to consider the programs that y'all might work with, either that you represent or that you work with. How does it appear on paper that you're offering, one, informed choice, and secondly, that the services and the programming are provided in an integrated setting? So here you go, evidence of integrated setting. Here's the DOJ's guidance. So evidence to establish compliance. So a person can have a treating professional identify the individual's needs and services and supports necessary for them to succeed in an integrated setting. So this is evidence that the program is addressing this. But people themselves, according to the DOJ, can also present their own independent evidence. And how's that done? Well, by them working out in the community, by them doing things that are living in the community and receiving services. Just by them doing it is evidence. DOJ also says individuals must be provided the opportunity to make an informed choice. Individuals who have been particularly institutionalized and segregated have often been repeatedly told that they're not capable of doing anything. We haven't set the expectation for them to do anything beyond being in a facility. So as a result, they and their families, their initial response is to be scared and reluctant and hesitant. It's our job to help them understand the implications of not being in the community, what it would mean for them to earn a living wage, get the benefit counseling that they need to make those decisions. And so it's saying here, DOJ says public entities must take affirmative steps to remedy the history of segregation and help individuals with make an informed choice by providing information about the benefits of integrated settings, setting up visits or other experiences, offering opportunities to meet with other individuals who are living and working and receiving services in integrated settings. Get the families together, community providers. Public entities must also make reasonable efforts to identify and address any concerns or objections And it's not, again, enough to say that you did it. You have to document that these things are taking place in a way that shows that the individual is making an informed choice. All right, now everyone's, I'm sure, at least heard about the Center for Medicaid Services, the Home and Community-Based Services, the settings rule. So in Georgia, we have two entities that primarily are the ones that fund employment services. One is the Georgia Vocational Rehabilitation Agency, and the other is the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. And through DBHCD, individuals, especially who have intellectual disabilities, can receive support employment services through Medicaid waivers, which are the home and community-based services, or they can receive state dollars, family support dollars to be in the community. On the behavioral health side, there's funding through their core grant, block grant for employment services. And our behavioral and our whole DBHCD is under a consent decree through the Department of Justice because of infraction of Olmstead Act. And we've been under a consent decree since 2010. So according to CMS, among day and employment services, so this is Medicaid funded services, facility-based and non-work services make up the largest percentage of expenditures, and participation in community integrated employment is limited. In 2014, 53% of all Medicaid long-term spending was on home and community-based services. Nationally, in 2013, less than 19% of individuals receiving DD services were served in an integrated employment. So again, keep in mind that in 1992, the VR Rehab Act started talking about informed choice. In 2000, the DD Act talked about informed choice and being in an integrated setting. In 2011, we have ADA and the integrated mandate. So we're just keep moving along, but we're still not where we need to be as far as getting people in integrated employment. In Georgia, in 2014, only 12% of individuals were served in an integrated employment setting. Fortunately, in 2016, it rose to 20%. Progress is being made, but we still have a lot of work to do. Okay, I'm gonna put a question here in the box. I saw that some folks are from Florida, and we've got Georgia folks. I'm gonna write a question here. All right, let's get a conversation started. Okay. So the settings rule, which also came about in 2014, that year seemed to be a big one from as far as these new laws addressing holistic services for individuals with disabilities. The settings rule came out from CMS, and it was regulatory guidance for all states who offered the home and community-based services, waiver services. And their final rule, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, addresses service planning must be developed through a person-centered planning process, and that the services are integrated in and supports access to the greater community, provides opportunities to seek employment and work in competitive integrated settings, engage in community life and control personal resources. It ensures that individuals receive services in the community to the same degree of access as individuals not receiving those Medicaid waiver services, and the setting selected by the individual from among setting options, including non-disability specific settings. And then CMS requires service plans document the above. So these settings rule and what they mandate has to be addressed is very similar to what we saw in vocational rehab mandates and WIOA. Person-centered CMS mandates that person-centered service plans also document and reflect cultural considerations, uses plain language, includes strategies for solving disagreements, offers choices to the person regarding services, and supports the person who receives and from whom, provides a method to request updates. The plan identifies the individual's strengths, preferences, needs, which includes the clinical and support needs, and their desired outcomes. I believe, oftentimes agencies have a template that some of the different service plans have, or what they look like. And it's not a very flexible document as far as how to document certain things. You kind of get used to checking boxes. So a good place to start in ensuring that the organization that you work for is meeting these mandates and is providing the informed choice that the person has a right to, is having those conversations with the organization. Is the form that we use allow us to document the informed choice that is provided? Are we not capturing everything that we're doing with this person? Because again, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. And many of the organizations out there that I'm familiar with are doing really good things. It's just not being reflected in the person's record. Okay. So a lot of organizations are community organizations, community rehab programs, are CARF accredited. This is an international accrediting agency for rehab programs. It does a lot of residential, many things that are associated with employment. In Georgia, among the community employment services, 120 organizations in Georgia have a CARF accreditation in employment supports, and 221 are accredited in community integration. The oftentimes, VR, vocational rehab, community rehab programs who may not necessarily have the community integration accreditation, but many of them are with employment supports. So the CARF standards themselves, they reference using informed choice, and that community employment services are responsive to individuals' choices and preferences. The standards also mention that persons are supported as needed through an individualized, person-centered model of services to choose and obtain successful employment opportunity consistent with their preferences. It finds new employment if necessary for the purposes for career advancement. Community integration services, which is often funded through waiver programs dollars, is designed to help persons to optimize their personal, social, and vocational competency to live successfully in the community. It says here, persons served are active partners in determining the activities they desire to participate in. So we've got laws, we have the funding source that has the mandates, and now we have the accrediting body for a lot of these rehab programs and organizations. They too, their standards are saying informed choice has to be considered and included and documented. Okay, so where the rubber meets the road. So it's one thing to say informed choice is being provided, but it's another to have evidence of it. So I wanted to share some of these resources to help you all who are interested in this, and these resources help document informed choice. So I'm going to pull this up and see this. Maybe it'll come up. Whoops, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I messed this up here. Bear with me. All right, where'd my PowerPoint go? There you go. Okay, I found it. Sorry about that. So this is the, since I didn't have it pulled up on my desktop, but if you're not familiar with Employment First Provider Transformation Manual, it has many modules in it to help providers think of employment first, get their program where it needs to be, that competitive integrated employment is the first option. And within that manual is a module related to looking at the organization through assessments, doing self-assessments as far as the individual staff members and the organization. And here on this module 7, at this link, which you can find here, as well as in the handout that I've attached to the presentation, it shows examples of questions that you can ask to help ensure that you are collecting the documentation that is evidence of informed choice and that you are providing it. Here also is a link for Minnesota's DB 101 Informed Choice in Employment Toolkit. It's an excellent resource. You know, I'm not saying that Minnesota is getting it right as far as down and actually in the field, but they provide a lot of good resources there that y'all might want to take a look at, which includes a handout related to holding engaging conversations about work. They have a resource about best practices related to success in employment that through this their DB 101. And they also have their toolkit to support informed choice, has questions and examples of actions that can be taken to address the informed choice. So I highly recommend you check that out. And then also, even though it's a little old, the Rehab Services Administration, this is from 2002, is an implementation of informed choice. So again, back in 1992, it was written into a law about informed choice, and it took another 10 years for the guidance to be written. But it's a good document to show what VR programs are supposed to be doing as it relates to informed choice. Okay, so here we are at the end. So again, we've talked about things that have been in place for quite some time, and we're still not where we need to be. So, but if we start thinking about how we are providing informed choice, is it truly informed choice? And if we are documenting it, what the positive results would be. But if we don't do it, there's going to be some negative consequences. One is that we will likely see no change in the employment rate among individuals with disabilities. Currently in Georgia, the employment rate, and this is used in 2017 numbers, was 34.4% compared to 76% of for people who do not have disabilities. This is not a new statistic, but it is a chronic and consistent statistic. Also, we won't see here in Georgia, our Developmental Disability Agency and other collaborators has a goal of increasing the number of persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities who are engaged in competitive integrated employment to go from 16.3%, which is now, which is less than it was in 2016, up to 48.9% by 2025. That's a huge jump. But again, we will not be able to achieve this goal if we do not start understanding what truly informed choice is, giving people options, but in a way that they can meaningfully make those informed decisions. And then lastly, what really got me going on this topic for today's webinar was the Georgia Collaborative ASO is the entity that does the quality reviews for our Developmental Disability and Behavioral Health Agency. And the one that just was recently made public was for the state fiscal year of 2019. And here's a quote directly from this report that was made available last month. It says quality reviews said approximately 50% to 70% of provider and support coordinator records lacked evidence that informed choice was provided for competitive or supported employment, living situations, environments, community participation, social interactions, or for opportunities for education, exploration, or experiences in the community. This seems related to findings that half of provider staff interviewed had not actually provided options for competitive employment. And that's pretty sad, especially considering how long we've had these laws in place. And it's just, time is only time, time will tell if there will be consequences of such as additional lawsuits or Department of Justice settlements, if all those things could potentially happen. But at the very least, individuals are sitting at home. They're sitting in environments doing things that may or likely not what is best for them. And it's because they do not have the information to make those decisions that would be most impactful. Okay, well, it's 2:50. I did pretty good. So I wanted to open it up for questions. I can, if you want, I can, let's see if I can unmute everybody. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Let's see here. All right, I've opened it up for everyone. If anyone has any questions that they would like to ask.
Hey, Paige, it's Doug.
Oh, hi, Doug.
Hey, we have a question that came in really about benefits planning, and so I'll just read it, and maybe you can help us. How does benefits planning / work incentives counseling connect with the topic of informed choice and self-determination?
That's a great question. Well, just thinking about when I make any decisions about my finances, I need to know all the ins and outs of, what would impact my finances. Thinking about my job, if I'm going to save money for retirement, what would it look like? How would I make that happen? If I wanted to change jobs, what would my pay rate need to be in order to pay my bills? So it's all the questions that a person would have to make decisions about their financial situation. And oftentimes individuals who have significant disabilities, and obviously the ones that are receiving Medicaid waivers and for employment services, they have Medicaid. And Medicaid, and here, at least here in Georgia, you have to have SSI, which Supplemental Security Income, in order to qualify or be eligible for waiver programs. That doesn't bring in a whole lot of money, but it is a constant thing that they have learned to rely on. They see that as being what gives them their interaction with others. And so they do not understand how going to work might impact it. They think that going to work, they're not able to go to work because they would lose those benefits. So having benefit counseling and having connection to people who can provide quality benefit counseling about what work would means as far as their benefits, connecting the person to set up ABLE accounts, setting up them to talk about past plans. all those things so they can learn what it means to go to work and the work incentives that's available to them, the Ticket to Work program, and the family members are engaged in those conversations. And they learn how it can all happen. They can learn about the possibilities. So benefit counseling is part of informed choice. It is what helps people make that decision to go to work in a competitive integrated setting, and most likely go outside what their comfort zone is. So it's essential for people to make good decisions and be self-determined, because we all dream about what we want to do. Nobody wakes up and goes, hey, I think I just want to work all my entire life putting things together, or I want to go to a day program and always only play bingo all day long. I don't think people wake up thinking that. It doesn't matter that they may not have the same education level or be able to communicate that, but most people want to go shopping. Most people want to contribute and have a purpose, but they get reliant on this system that we have. It's entitlement programs. And so they need to have that information to make good decisions, and to know there are possibilities outside of what they're used to. Did that answer your question?
Certainly did. Thank you, Paige. We have a couple others, but I'll wait for you to, if there's some other questions coming in.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Oh, let's see. Go to questions page. Oh, here we go. I just now saw. So earlier I'd asked people about what they thought would keep people from working and achieving competitive integrated employment. And I've heard about aspirations, freedom, the right to, I'm sorry. This one's related to the words that are associated with informed choice. So some folks said aspirations, that came to mind. Freedom, the right to use strengths. And then the reasons for not going to work or competitive integrated employment is fear of acceptance. That's true, that's a good one. Another one is my students believe they cannot work or they will lose their disability benefits. So exactly what we were just talking about. Transportation, a lack of expectations. Parents and caregivers wanting to keep benefits check is a major barrier to employment. Oh, keep a benefits check, right. Parents concerned about safety. So our systems still rely on a deficits focus rather than on strengths. There are many factors. One that I see often are the business needs some education and outreach. Yeah. Fear. Often it is their families or their caregivers who may not allow them or hinder their work. And then absolutely, these are all real reasons why people don't achieve competitive integrated employment. But it all has a common theme. It's fear, lack of expectations, is being reliant on entitlement programs and being afraid of giving them up, and just not knowing. So bottom line is not knowing the information they need, the information they need to have to make decisions. Ignorance is not always bliss. And so these things can be addressed by having all the tools and knowledge that they need in order to make those decisions, but they also need someone to help guide them through. Recognize that they are not going to make just one decision and it be the same decision they want to make next year. It needs to be rechecked, and just guide them through making those decisions. But it starts with the professional staff having the belief that people are capable of working in competitive integrated employment. It's having the belief that they need to be in the community and they need to be productive citizens in whatever way they want to be. All right, let's see, did I get everybody? Like I said, new to this particular platform. All right, do we have any other questions? Let's see, did I get them all? Let's see, yep, I think so. Doug, did you have another question?
Yeah, we had one come in on email. Just, I think these two are kind of linked. And I know we're running out of time here, but they both obviously have to do with the topic of informed choice and the role that maybe traditional vocational evaluation plays in that versus a strengths-based like discovery process. You know, yeah, just how you have so much experience on this, so I'll just leave it at that.
Well, thank you. So Doug, my great coworker there, we often get in debates about vocational evaluation because that's one of my areas of training and expertise. And vocational evaluations have always been focused on the individual. It's always been, when done correctly, person-centered. So when you have vocational evaluators who recommend day programs or says that somebody can't go to work, then those people are not doing it correctly. Vocational evaluations are meant to assume work, but provide recommendations related to the training needs, what supports the person would need to make that happen, the steps in achieving those vocational goals. Vocational evaluations were never meant to exclude people from competitive integrated employment. So when you have experience with providers who do those evaluations and that's what the outcome that you get, then my first recommendation is don't use them again, or at least explain to them that it's not correct. But recognize that a certain model of evaluation is not the same, it's not the best for everybody. And vocational rehab programs and many agencies and organizations use a very specific model. They can, this is a template that they use, this is the assessments that they use. And the role with Discovery is that it's very flexible. It does not rely on standardized assessments, which is not something that it would benefit everybody. So the professionals need to recognize what type of assessment is best for the person and meets them where they are and highlights their strengths. As both are strength-based assessment tools, there are different ways of going about it, and Discovery is best for individuals who have complex or limitations or disabilities. And there's no point in doing standardized tests if the results are going to end up being, if someone is going to have a low reading level, you don't need to document that again. You need to focus on opportunities for them that reading levels are needed. So does that answer your question?
Thank you, Paige. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're out of time. It's 3:01. I hope everyone enjoyed today's webinar, and we appreciate you starting off our webinar series through Advancing Employment. And be sure to, if you have not done so already, we have our next one coming up that is going to be on Thursday with Marion Curry on leadership and lessons learned. So everyone have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you Thursday.